everybody is probably tuned in. They'll only miss the introductions. Thanks again for coming out. I'm glad things went okay there at 1:15, and I know she had to leave, but I appreciate Laura Knox kind of getting everything organized and realizing that we needed to start our meeting at 2. So that was nice. Let's go ahead. I told Stephen, you've got the agenda in front of you. The agenda is up on the website. So we'll go ahead and start with our introductions. And Henry, let's start with you.
Yeah, Henry Weintraub, consultant to Express Car Wash.
Karen Weiner, Charlottesville Fashion Square.
Jim Paul from City of Charlottesville.
Brad Sheffield, Albemarle County.
John Nunley, Better Living.
Chuck Lebo, Lebo Commercial Properties.
Mark Graham, Albemarle County.
Jordan Butler, Southern Environmental Law Center.
Chip Boyles with the Thomas Jefferson Planning District and the area MPO.
Pete Bush's CMA Properties.
Lou Hatter, 29 Communications Manager. Chuck Proctor, Culpeper District Planning, VDOT.
Stephen Davis, VDOT, IT Central Office.
Debbie Messina, Philadelphia Cat Company.
Andrew Scott, VDOT Charlottesville Residency.
Joel Renzo, VDOT Charlottesville Residency.
Thank you very much. One or two new faces. If anyone needs a restroom facility, it's out the door to the right, and you'll see them on the right. If for any reason we had any situation that required us to leave the building, we would go back down the steps, out the front door, and down the street, take a left, and just keep walking down the street. We've had 14 total meetings and not had to do that, so I hope we don't have to in the future. Thanks again for everybody coming out today. Dave Covington, who you all have gotten to know, is busy in the final round of proprietary meetings with the offers, the design build offers. So he's in Richmond today and won't be with us. John Lynch, the district administrator, is there with him as well. The mayor is out of town, and Eddie called me last night and is just not able to be with us today. So we'll catch them up on anything that we discuss. Stephen, go to the next one. From last meeting, November the 6th, we had 52 viewers, which I think is about the same number that we had the meeting before. 125 streams, and average stream per minute, average minutes per stream, 33 minutes. I went back and looked since the first round of panel meetings, in the ones that started in March, and there's been just a little shy of 2,000 views of the replays of the videos, and about 1,000 total live streams, which, you know, I mean, it could be 100 people doing all of that, but I don't know. I think it says something good about transparency in government, and really continue to hand it to VDOT to keep this live streaming open. That was a last minute, I shouldn't say last minute, but that was a late February decision back in 2014 before the panel meeting started, and it has just blossomed throughout VDOT as a standard practice of a lot of public gatherings, including the CTB meetings. So that's a good thing. The website produced 10 new comments. The total public input postings are up to 85. There was 45 new ones since November 3rd. A lot of those are me and a couple of people trading different notes on information, but they're all out there. We've been doing at each meeting kind of, breaking down the comments within an email comment. There were 3 this 2-week period that expressed an opposition about the Rio grade separated intersection. There are 4 that talked about a topic we've talked about before, building parallel roads first. 2 supporters of the Charlottesville bypass. 1 that wrote just to say they supported Route 29 solutions. 1 asked very specifically why there were no formal environmental reviews. And I just put a note on there to remind you all and the record that the required formal environmental reviews were conducted and approved by the Federal Highway Administration on September the 29th. Next one, Stephen. 1, I think it was this same person, if I recall, said if transparency is important, why use design build? I mean, those issues aren't linked. I mean, design build is a procurement process. It's not a new one. It's not a tricky one. It's a different method of packaging a project for delivery, and includes, in the case of highways, it includes all the same formal and informal methods of public input. If you think about the comment about live streaming, I would say that I can't think of a project at VDOT, certainly when I was there, that has gotten as much opportunity for public input, and I'm not saying that shouldn't happen, but that it's gotten as much opportunity for public input as this one had. Why doesn't HB2 apply? I'm not going to get into a big discussion there, but the law requires the CTB to begin selecting projects for funding using under HB2 July 1, 2016. VDOT just at their last, the Commonwealth Transportation Board at their last meeting in November, in November, approved $13 billion worth of work in the 6-year plan. So there is no requirement for VDOT to stop everything before July 1, 2016 to score projects. Out of that $13 billion 6-year improvement program, about $400 million tied to 60 projects has been set aside for those 60 projects to go through House Bill 2. None of these projects are part of that 60. So there was no hidden agenda to do these projects to avoid House Bill 2. They are part of several hundred projects that are in the 6-year program and that are funded for construction and that are moving forward. 1 supports a flyover from, and I want to spend a little bit of time on this, 1 supports a flyover from Route 29 into Albemarle Square Shopping Center. Jim Plotkin had written a comment through the website before the last meeting that didn't get to me until after our last meeting, asking me to specifically bring up this item at a panel meeting discussion. And he wrote me again last night, and I answered him this morning. Very early this morning, I copied you all on that correspondence because he specifically asked me to get that in front of the panel. Now, he and I might have some different views about some other issues in his email, but what he specifically asked was that I bring up this matter in front of you. And what I told him is that I would do that, and I would ask for input from the panel about whether or not you would like us to take a look at such a flyover. But we can do that regardless of the outcome. That would not be part of this project or part of the design build package. That's something that could be looked at if you're interested in knowing what that might entail or what it may cost, and whether or not the county would want to consider something like that in the future. I would be fine with having the team take a conceptual look at it. As long as we understand, that doesn't mean that we're stopping what we're doing or changing what we're doing. If you guys would like to think about that over the next 2 weeks, that's fine. If it's something you'd like me to take a look at and bring information back to you, that's fine as well. Might not be able to do it by December the 4th, but could probably do it by our December 18th meeting. So I'll leave that with you, but I felt bad about not bringing up Mr. Plotkin's comments on November 6th, but I just simply didn't get them until the 8th or the 9th. So I appreciate him reaching out directly to me this morning, and you can see his full correspondence in what I forwarded to you earlier today. One expressed some concern about traffic detouring that might detour through Albemarle Square. One prefers addressing hydraulic grade separation first before Rio. One wants the adaptive signals to finish first, and as you'll remember, that first phase of the telecommunications of the adaptive signals will finish in time for the signals to be monitored and managed in real time during construction, and that's, I think, a real good plus for what we're doing. One suggested improvements be made to Prophet Road Route 20 intersection, which I think is about 6 or 8 miles to the east, and the underpass at Polo Grounds Road. That's just not part of what we're doing here, but Joel, that was a comment that you may want to consider and chew on for your future, or maybe you have some plans here.
We just completed an analysis of Prophet Road 20 to make some safety improvements there.
Oh, okay. That you're going to make some safety improvements?
It's mostly with signs. And
Oh, okay.
It has been
Okay.
concerned.
Okay.
And I might be wrong, but I think the underpass at Polo Grounds Road, I think that might be a comment that relates to something we received, the Board of Supervisors, about a temporary signal at the underpass at the railroad that's there.
Okay.
Because if people are to use that road as cut through, right now you have to stop, honk, look for the mirror that sometimes is muddied up, and
Okay.
a temporary signal might allow for faster traffic and safer.
Is that something that should get back to Joel, or something that the county?
When we rebuilt the Prophet Road Bridge, they did put a temporary signal there, so that's something we should probably consider because of the increase in traffic there.
Okay, so can you take that one, Joel? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, this is the part where we've added to our agenda, and Karen, you may not have been here when we discussed this, or the first time we did it, but Brad had suggested we add a kind of an open piece to the agenda. So this is
Only if
that.
it goes well, they can give you credit.
Only if it goes well. Whether it goes well or not, we'll presume that it goes well because it's an open discussion. So, any thoughts or that you want to share or feedback?
I apparently am a magnet for comments and thoughts. Someone asked about, are we looking at the U-turn at Gander Mountain if you're heading south? If you want to avoid Rio intersection, you might do a U-turn cut through Carsbrook. Temporarily limit that to no U-turn. I don't know. I don't think there's any businesses that are impacted by that limitation. The residents haven't really said much. I haven't really asked the Carsbrook residents, but.
I'm sorry.
So if you're heading south on 29
Yes.
and you come to the Gander Mountain Light, right now you can make a U-turn, and the fear is that people might make a U-turn and then take Carsbrook to cut through to get to Rio Road. And so by putting up a temporary no U-turn sign,
Right.
you wouldn't be able to make a U-turn to get into Carsbrook. Now, the residents of Carsbrook might be limited, but up until last year, they were not able to make that U-turn.
Right.
Actually, that,
A year ago, 2 years, whatever it's been. So.
I think that would make it more dangerous, because then what they'll start doing is coming up on the access road between Better Living Furniture and Schul's to
That's
catch
good.
that light.
Yeah, that's a good
And
point.
the light only has a 2-spot staging.
Yeah.
So what they're going to start doing is cutting off the intersection.
That's a good point. I will just disclose, I usually give comments based on what I'm receiving, not whether I endorse them or not. People say, can you mention this? So.
Yeah, no, that's.
So it sounds
no,
like
that's
if you
fine.
put a U-turn there, it could impact those businesses that are on the
Okay, okay. Well,
the
we'll-
westbound,
Okay.
westbound side.
I
okay.
think it would just make it more dangerous, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what, okay. Well, okay, all right.
As I shared with you and
Yeah.
VDOT staff, I had a resident who was very, very angry that no buses were in the video simulation, but she bridged that to a
Yeah.
discussion that we're still not talking about transit and bike and pedestrian.
Yeah,
Just throwing that out there again.
no, I hear you. I hear you. And you did make us so aware of that. And they're right, there are no buses in the.
The
the
senior
video.
center just wants to make sure that we're not using Greenbrier as an official detour. I can't imagine we
Oh,
would.
we're not.
It's too far down.
We're
but
not.
He
Yeah.
wanted me to.
Okay,
I had an Earlysville resident who was adamant that I would say that even though we disagreed and she, basically hung up on me, her husband medical office is in the Albemarle Square Shopping Center, and she wanted to express the concern that it'll be difficult for her to get there. Conversation, I tried to figure out what we could do there, but
okay,
But I promised her I'd mention it.
okay.
So, I'm sorry I'm taking up a little bit of time here, but the last two are just the video. Is that a realistic timing of the light cycle? Someone asked.
The video is, but the video is being updated. The video that you saw, and then which is still running, on VDOT's YouTube channel, actually.
And
I mean, it's not real, not in terms of the length of a cycle, I don't think.
That's what they were implying, is that,
That's a good question. Doesn't seem like the video would be long enough in that regard, but I don't know. That's a good question.
Joe might look at
That's
that.
good. Yeah,
I think
yeah,
it
absolutely.
would give the impression of
Absolutely.
people watching it that.
So in other words, is it real time? Is it a video? That's
Yeah,
real
is
time?
that how long I would sit
You
at
mean
that
the
light
light
before?
sequence there?
Yeah.
Well, that's based on this model, correct?
Yeah, but I mean, that's not an answer for the public, though.
No, yeah, we need to check it.
I don't know if it actually simulates the actual time that the light phasing would occur. I don't know. That's a good question. That's a real
I
good
think
question.
you might, if it doesn't, I would put some sort of disclosure.
Yeah, I'm not sure that it doesn't. I just frankly hadn't thought about that.
The last
Okay.
is actually an interesting question. I have looked at the RFP materials, but I didn't go back to look at this. But is there a penalty if the contractor changes staff during the construction, the main staff? I know when I was a consultant, that there would be penalties sometimes that if the lead staff were changed, because that's the head. And,
yeah.
and if businesses are making connections with that individual,
Yeah.
then that goes away. It really sets things back.
You can correct me if I'm wrong, Joel, but the word penalty would not be correct. I don't believe they can change key staff without the written approval of the engineer, without the written approval of VDOT. Because remember, the teams were qualified and selected based on their response to the request for qualifications. And that's a common worry, is that an A team gets presented and then a C team moves in. So VDOT controls that pretty carefully.
And I was pretty sympathetic to that because
Yeah.
being on the public side, when I'd had vendors come in and
Sure.
implement projects,
Yeah.
midstream, we'd have the project manager change.
Oh, yeah,
And then
yeah.
just
No,
things would start to fall
I'm
apart.
extremely
So-
sympathetic to it from both sides. But that can't happen willy-nilly with what, I don't know how you identify them, Joe, key positions or certain identified positions. The same with the design team. Have you got more for our Brad Sheffield section of the agenda?
I'm sorry.
No, I'm
I
teasing.
get a
I'm
lot of
teasing.
emails.
No, that's
and
good. No,
calls,
thank you.
And town hall meetings have been very
No,
interesting.
thank you.
You're the man with the constituents.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And we will,
either
I want
good
to
or
go
bad
back and
thing
look
that
at the
that
Gander Mountain
pulls
thing
eyes
just a
on
little
that.
bit, and I'll talk to Joel about that, and the question on the video, absolutely. Any other things that you want to get, Mark?
I had one, and I first have to make an admission, I did not get to check on this. I meant to, is someone was telling me on the YouTube with the simulation, there's not an ability to put comments out there on the site, you know?
I honestly don't
And
know.
I was going to say can we either allow people to put comments on it, or can we at least direct them to the Route 29 solutions and say that's where you can put comments?
There's some good comments on the ABC 29 site.
Uh,
Particularly, I like that it's unrealistic. There's not that many green cars in Charlottesville.
That's specifically for the video?
Yeah,
the
they
video?
were
Okay.
talking about the
All right.
the simulation.
Okay, okay.
They said, gee, it would have been nice to put comments, because, and frankly, most of the comments I heard were positive.
Yeah, I understand.
People talk about getting addicted to watching that thing.
Lou, I know some public agencies don't go for a lot of comments on their YouTube channel. I frankly don't know, since I haven't watched any replays of our own meetings, I don't know.
I was just about to message our social media coordinator.
Okay.
I don't know, I
Okay.
think the comments are disabled, but I wanted to
Okay.
confirm that.
That's what I was told.
Okay. But so if you can carry this forward, Mark's point is maybe you can do that, or let people know how to make a comment on the, yeah, okay. Thanks, Mark, that's good. Karen?
I'm having trouble loading the video, so I don't know if I'm in the right spot or not, because I wanted to take a look at it, but I just had a general question, because I haven't seen them thus far. Do any of the renderings or videos show a different perspective other than simply an aerial or bird's eye view to show actually what it looks like as you're driving through this?
Not currently. So a drive-through instead of a fly-through.
As you're coming through.
Yeah,
you're
we
going
can,
into a-
I know that's possible to do.
That would be appreciated.
Okay.
So everybody
All right.
can really see a true view,
Okay.
not just from the aerial, what it's going to look like.
Well, in that case, you would see a view of a car in the through lane, so you would also want to do
Right.
a view of a car in the loop
Yeah.
lane. What's the right term for, instead of the fly over, the drive-through? Drive-through. Thank you, Andrew. My guess is that wouldn't be ready in a couple of weeks. I just know those things take huge amounts of processing time, so it might not be the next
Yeah,
meeting.
it's just the aerial looks so
Yeah.
flat. And
No,
you
I
get
got
a
it.
true perspective
Okay.
of what
All right.
it's going to be like going through it.
Okay.
And looking at
Okay,
the bridge and
Yeah.
the walls and everything.
yeah, okay, okay, thank you. Henry?
Like to turn in some homework.
We're always happy to receive it and
Yeah.
grade it. No.
Well,
You want me to pass around?
essentially what I did is, since I did this diagram in the past and there was some argumentation of where I got my numbers from and whatever, so since we got more numbers from VDOT last meeting, I just used those numbers and redid mine, and I have a little spreadsheet printed out attached where you can check my numbers, which I picked up from all those little arrows, those diagrams. And this is the bottom line where it shows what the impact is on business that are adjacent to the grade separation at the local roads. And so essentially, I completed my homework once I got corrected by the professor.
All right, was there enough to make it around?
I think so. I think there are like 20 of them.
Okay.
It's not.
Uh,
No, I think they covered. Thank you.
Yeah, let me give it, Andrew, can you pick up a couple, do you have something? All righty, well, thank you, Henry. Thank you.
Yeah, I've got a couple of things, that, and I don't know if we can touch on it now or just table it for later today.
Okay.
Okay. Weeks, but the Ashwood Boulevard connection has been discussed a lot, and I know that it went, the board discussed it, and it died a quiet death. And you know, Mark's emails with Henry over the past couple of weeks have spurred my thinking and my reading of the master plan, which is a nice light read. But it's all over the master plan. as far as the Ashwood Boulevard connection, and really Hollymead, and there's several other things in there that we're not working inside of. And I think it's a little bit, it's disingenuous to say that we're working inside the master plan for some goals that seem to fit the objective, and then ignore things that are in the master plan that don't fit the current objective. And I think we need to be honest and table those things. I printed out a few things that I'd like to just pass around.
Sure.
And these are taken out of the master plan, and there's some highlighted language. One of these actually speaks to the construction at, no, I don't. One of them speaks to the construction at Rio and 29, and speaks specifically about why it should be phased. And then the other two documents are Ashwood Boulevard connection. And, Mark, your email with all the documents was well taken, because all of this comes out of the Places 29 master plan. I guess my question is for the panel and also for the county, in terms of, is this master plan one that we are going to use as a guiding principle? And if that's the case, then let's table the access maintenance and access improvements that are listed in this. There are dozens of road closure, of access closures on 29 listed, both midterm and long term. Is that what we're going toward as a county? If so, let's put it on the table, because I think we ought to know. Henry's question was, is this going to further the expressway idea? And that's on everybody's mind. We need to address that. If you dig into the Places 29 master plan, which Mark had suggested is potentially our guiding principle, it's hard to deny that that's the goal. And if that's the case, then we need to talk about it. We need to be open about it. If you want to talk about openness and transparency, let's have it out now, because I think we owe it to the public.
Okay. Neil and I have commented back and forth, and he correctly catches me saying that that's not in the plan. I know I can speak for the Commonwealth and for VDOT. That's not the plan. I mean, the charge was to come here and not judge the bypass, but to find some projects to improve mobility and relieve congestion in the corridor, and that if or not, and that if there were a group of projects or a project that the city endorsed, the county endorsed, and was included in the MPO's fiscally constrained long-range plan, that they could be presented to the Commonwealth Transportation Board and funded. There was a lot of discussion between that first panel and the CTB and with the secretary that, if it's not a pick and choose menu. If there are a package of projects, let's stand them up and move them forward or not. Now, you're correct about what is in that master plan, but the Commonwealth and the point of this exercise is to deliver this group of projects. Hydraulic is in there for the preliminary engineering study. That's going to have to stand on its own to move forward, as would any other project. And those projects, like any other project in the Commonwealth, would be subject to the prioritization process of House Bill 2. So I have not heard, been part of, or asked about any longer term effort than to deliver these projects that came out of the first panel and move on. I mean, it is highly unusual for a district to get an allocation this large geared toward one package of projects. Now, I'm not a governor or commissioner or to say what somebody else may want or not want to do in the future. I'm not going to pretend that I know the answer to that. But I can say with confidence that there is no intent to move from these, on behalf of the Commonwealth, move from these to another level of effort or package of projects. I mean, coming out of the first panel, well, I'm not going to remember every word exactly. I think I said, and I think I said to the County Board of Supervisors,
This is not the end.
I am not recommending an expressway.
But you also said this is the beginning, not the end.
I don't think I said this is the beginning, not the end.
I think I heard Secretary Lane state at the Board of Supervisors that this was step one in a series of improvements. I could be wrong. Brad, am I right? This is step one.
So why build a grade separated interchange if the long-term plan isn't to do the expressway all the way down 29?
The plan, the reason to build the grade separated intersection, in spite of what the gentleman this morning may have said, is to improve the operation of that intersection. It's to improve the operation of that intersection. It is not unusual to grade separate an intersection that is congested. But you know, I can't speak for the Secretary. I know the Secretary's comment to the folks to the south was, this doesn't mean that other looks at mobility from south side to northern Virginia might not take place, but there is no plan to do anything. There is no program to do anything beyond this, and based on what I know about transportation allocations in Virginia, I think it will be a while before anybody's talking about a lot of construction here in the Culpeper district anywhere. I mean, this is a huge allocation. The Rio grade separated intersection is about that intersection. And I know we share different opinions on that intersection, but it's not about doing something else. I mean, we looked at...
I understand where you're coming from, and
Yeah.
I appreciate that you are insulated from the big picture. But there is a big picture, and it's in print in this binder. And it references several other 7 or 8 grade separated interchanges as long-term, you know, whatever.
Right.
But at one point this time last year, this was long-term. So what are we to think at this point? And so that's the hard part for us.
Okay, I understand.
The other hard part for us is if this Places 29 master plan is our guiding principle, what are we to think about all those road closures and all of those access closures and you know, reroutes and no left turns and I mean, it clearly describes an expressway. The other point is, in the handout that I passed out, referencing the Rio 29 interchange, specifically the highlighted portions that I put out say that it needed to be considered in phasing so that the parallel roads could support the traffic congestion during that project. It's not being discussed, and it's just waved aside in this panel and in this project.
Well, I don't think it's not being discussed and waved aside. It's without getting into the past studies about every aspect of how this plan came together, which there are a lot of criticisms about on both sides of the fence. Rio was prioritized ahead of hydraulic, and then hydraulic was prioritized ahead of Rio, and then without any, it was the other way around. Hydraulic was prioritized ahead of Rio, then Rio was prioritized, and then without any public involvement or agenda, there was a Commonwealth Transportation Board meeting where hydraulic got put back in front of Rio. There's a study by the Joint Legislative Review Commission that basically says the development of Route 29 bypass over about a 30-year period was a good example of a poor transportation planning process. Frankly, I don't care. I don't care about all that. I mean, I don't care about all that. You don't care about all that. We have this. The parallel roads are getting delivered as part of this project. The Rio grade separated intersection is getting delivered as part of this project. The Rio grade separated intersection is going to get finished in 2016. And, you know, open and honest, that's open and honest. That's
there's a disconnect with what the county has publicly said was going to happen and the way this is being processed. That's all I'm pointing out.
I got you.
And,
I got you.
And so what I'd like to do is if we're going to move forward, just know the rules of the game.
Well, we're going to move forward with delivering all the projects we talked about. Berkmar, Route 29 North, Hillsdale, been fully funded for the city, the adaptive signals, the 29-250 interchange, known as the Best Buy ramp, and the preliminary engineering study for hydraulic, which we moved the little Hillsdale South extension into at your all's recommendation. That's what we're doing. You know, that's what we're doing. We have made a decision with VDOT to remove the 2017 option for the Rio grade separated intersection. So we've got the 103-day period between May and September. September 2nd, the intersection has to be reopened to all movements. Then there's a 90-day period for cleanup, which is common, landscaping, a lot of things that will get finished that don't affect the operation of the intersection by December 2nd, 2016.
And Pete, just to give you my perspective, I do think this plan is out of date. I've said that numerous times in the last 2 weeks, the planning at the Board of Supervisor meetings, as Mark knows. And you know, that's why we have the Citizen Advisory Council. You know, this is something we need to bring up, that it's the Places 29, it was going this way, but now we're slightly off that track. Do we need to adjust Places 29 to match where we're going? Not follow Places 29, but adjust Places 29 to follow.
Yeah, I mean, I think, frankly, it would be good to know that there are other steps coming, that there are other steps planned, because this investment is so significant that we have other choke points. I mean, what are our plans? And the unknown is really what causes problems.
So that's why we need to get to work and start redefining these plans, because this was like 5 years in the making, and now it's sat.
I think it would be helpful, Brad, if staff, Mark, would it be possible, or do you have a access management map? There's about 7 or 8 pages of access management.
There's a separate plan on NPO's website.
Summarized.
Right.
Is there a map that shows those entrances?
There's a separate access management plan. Yeah.
I have the grid, but I just don't have the map that shows them all. Because several of them are closed and turned into, you know, out only or in only.
We talked about those the closing of intersections to left turns during the first panel, and did not recommend moving those forward. But I know they are in the plan. You know, I'm not trying to disconnect what we're doing from the plan, but
I mean,
the planning element is the county's.
We're talking about the transportation element, but the plan is disconnected with the land use side of it as well. And so, I mean, the plan is sat for so long that it's now stale, and it needs to be updated. I mean, that's why, you know, your property next to Berkmar, I've been advocating for that, because that stretch of Berkmar and Places 29 is completely off base now.
Right.
We talk about all the residential growth. The plan says all this residential growth is going to occur in that area. We know that's not going to happen. It's going to be commercial growth. But what does that need to look like? So, I mean, you bring up a great point, and we should talk about this at the next Places 29 meeting, because I begged the county, and I was told Pantops is the next master plan update. I wish it was Places 29. There's no reason why those of us who serve on that Places 29 council can't start updating the plan ourselves. There's no reason why not. We can do it absent of staff help.
One thing that cannot happen absent a significant change in the law is that no VDOT administration can come and dictate to the locality what's going to happen. I mean, in terms of new projects, it has to come up through the transportation planning process before it can get to the CTB to be allocated.
But, and that's what we talked about with Ashwood, and I thought that was why.
Yeah, now, Ashwood, I stand behind what I told the panel. If Ashwood,
It is in the plan.
if Ashwood comes up through the MPO,
Okay.
I will stand in front of the CTB and recommend that it be funded. I made that commitment, and I would do that. I'm not saying that assures anything, but I would do that, and I would tell the story about the discussions that we've had about it since the beginning, and I mean, I'll do that.
Thank you.
Well, I said Ashwood or any connector that came, because we mentioned there were a couple others. It's Ashwood, it's Ashwood.
Pete, I appreciate it, because it's something I've been saying lately, that there's just such a disconnect. And it's sending such a confusing message, and again, not just for 29, just land use wise and all. I mean, I get on the soapbox so much about this, that there's a disconnect between these master plans and the zoning, and it's confusing.
And if I can add, the long-range transportation planning begins in less than 2 years now. So you want to have those changes in place so that it can start being picked up in the long-range transportation plan, if there are some changes that need to occur there to make it through the process.
I think one point I want to add, not to prolong the conversation, but it's very tempting to look at the Rio interchange solely from the perspective of through traffic. So the reaction is, okay, you funnel traffic through this intersection, but what next? But I think at the core of this whole transportation strategy is recognizing that the vast majority of traffic on Route 29 is local traffic. The idea is, let's use these parallel roads to get that traffic off of Route 29, free up capacity on Route 29 for those people who are trying to get through the area. You give local drivers through these parallel roads more ways to get to the places where they're trying to go. When you look at Rio on a map, Rio is kind of the nexus, the center point, where these new parallel roads and extended parallel roads all come together. So you're undermining the value of the parallel road network if your nucleus with these different strands all comes together in one big, giant, congested knot. So there are significant benefits to the project from a transportation perspective in terms of local traffic and the role it plays in really accentuating the parallel road network. And so I think that's a very important point to keep in mind. We can't just look at it with the blinders on of, okay, if I want to get from north to south, how does this fit into the bigger picture?
I haven't seen why the east-west movements are going to, how they're going to be improved. There's going to be a stoplight. There's going to be the same turning movements left and right. I don't see how.
We're going to get to that on agenda item 4. We are going to get to that on agenda item 4.
Okay.
And you still may not see it, but we're going to get to that, because that's one of the things that you asked us to look at, I think, at the last meeting. Brad?
Did I ask for something?
I've got my simple take on it, but we are going to get to that. And I know I've mentioned this before, but the other underlying thing that I've heard about long-term plans is that there's a plan to do Rio and then forget the parallel roads. That is not the plan. The plan is to deliver Hillsdale, deliver Berkmar, deliver Rio, and 29 North, Best Buy, all of the projects.
Bill, that is a fear.
I've heard that. I've heard it more than once.
I hear it, and let me give you a hypothetical, that somehow the bids come in very high, work change orders start to accumulate, all kinds of things happen, and before you know it, it jumps substantially from 85 to, I'm going to say something absurd, okay, 170. Okay? But now you're committed to this project, you have to finish it. Well, now you spent the money that was going to be spent on Berkmar Extended. So are you still doing Berkmar Extended?
We are doing all of these projects.
Okay.
We're doing all of these projects. And, I mean, I appreciate you saying you're
I'm
going to
telling
jump
you-
to something absurd,
Yeah.
but we're going to do all these projects. If we open prices on January the 26th, and they don't make sense compared to the estimate, then we might have a different conversation, you know. But one of the advantages of design build from a procurement process is the contractor substantially finishes the design and prices what they designed to build, as opposed to design bid build, where a contractor takes a set of plans from VDOT, wins the job, then starts finding changes. But could there be change orders? Sure, there could be.
Hidden conditions.
VDOT's got schedule and budget down pretty good now. So
Listen, that is what it
yes,
is.
no.
Sometimes I figure that I'm the translator, I translate what gets.
Yeah,
here.
no,
I want to translate that back.
I
That is
have
clear.
heard that, and there is no intent to allow that to happen. I mean, these things were funded as a package, and are going to be delivered as a package.
We're going to have you sign that.
I would be happy to do it. I would do it. I don't know.
And just quickly, talk a little bit about what Pete said. This is in the transportation plan.
Mhm.
It was just adopted 3 short years ago.
Mhm.
That cannot be that obsolete. And quite frankly, if you do Berkmer, and then you get the cross connections at Ashwood and Hollymead,
Mhm.
you're going to do probably more for mobility than anything else we're doing, because there you're really getting cars to get off 29. And generally, the people that make use of that are the people that probably live on the west side of
Mhm.
29 and really never want to get on 29, but they can get to a lot of places. So I still think that it would make eminent sense to do it. And I guess even here, it kind of suggests that while you get the right-of-way, there's language right here, I just read it, while you get Berkmer extended, you may as well, piggyback this project. I know it's not your job, but I'm just doing it for the
Yeah, I hear you.
audience, for those
I hear you.
people
I hear you.
that may have some connection with the county, and maybe they think about it a second time. That's all.
Okay.
Made my statement.
Okay.
How about stormwater runoff
Mhm.
and staging area? Those got shown like in Pete's parking lot.
Yes,
And
yes.
we were all pretty floored about it, and we
Right.
haven't seen anything else since.
Right. Well, there's those 4 areas that were looked at initially for underground stormwater management. Remember, there'd be temporary easements, and then the land would be returned to its use. There's been some discussion that hasn't gotten ripe for a decision yet about whether or not with these 3 projects, the design-build projects, since it's one project with 3 pieces, might there be an opportunity for stormwater management consolidated at 1 or 2 of the pieces, as opposed to handling each 3 individually? And all I can say is it's got some head scratching to consider that, which means that if that could happen, then the need to handle stormwater management at Rio might be reduced. So that needs some time to play out with some folks that deal with those regulations. But that's what's going on with stormwater.
But even if they go under a parking lot, you take away the property owner's ability to develop that in the future.
You do.
And that's a taking.
That's a taking that has to be compensated, and if there are damages associated with a taking, then, and they are substantiated, then those can be compensated. That is a taking.
But it's hard to define what a property owner like Colonial or Fashion Square,
Mhm.
you know, the county's trying to make everything out close to the
Mhm.
street. So all of a sudden, he'd have an unbuildable footprint.
Yeah,
Same thing with Fashion Square.
What VDOT can do is VDOT can provide a property owner whose property is subject to a taking with information regarding damages. So if there's a situation with an easement and a property owner wants to pursue that, they could contact Joel, and Joel could get them in the right channel to understand how that compensation works, but it can only be if there's a taking, according to the Virginia law. But the reason I haven't talked about the stormwater management things is there hadn't been anything new to say, and this other development is gelling a bit, which is interesting to me for a couple of reasons, and might reduce the requirement to mitigate stormwater for Rio at Rio.
Yeah, I think what John was alluding is, let's just say you still have to do that retention. And this is where the conflict comes for the owner of the property. You know, okay, VDOT will compensate him, but then if that property gets redeveloped, the county says, no, you got to be right within 30 feet of the right-of-way, because that's the new zoning. And the property owner says, I wish I could, but I can't, because I have the cistern underground. So then they have to ask for a special exception, and there's some imponderables down the road. What it will do to them. That's, I think, what he's alluding to. I'm not saying that we can do anything about it right now, but it's an additional headache for the property owner.
I understand. Well, Brad, I'm glad you added this section to the agenda. No, I'm serious. Serious. It is. You know, because otherwise we might not have this discussion out here. So, I mean, really, I think it's serving the purpose. Serving the purpose you intended. No, that's good. No, it's good. It's good. Can we move on to item 4, or are we good?
No, we'll be here till 6 o'clock.
Okay, that page looks the same from the RFQ advertisement with Stephen. This is the new thing today. There were 2 proprietary meetings yesterday, and there is one going on right now, so that'll kind of finish that block of items, and then just keeping track of our schedule for 2015, proposals, price proposals, and CTV contract award February 18th, and notice to proceed March the 4th. Nothing new there from what you've seen. Panel recommendations explain the benefits for businesses on either side of Rio. And Pete, you know, you're right that the local lanes will still be there. The same turning movements that are there today will be there in the future. What will change for those movements is that about 42,000 cars a day won't be in the mix for turning movements through the intersection. That affects phasing times, that affects time to get through a signal. Now I'm looking at the 2040 number, and if you look at the total number of cars, the ADT number, it's around 40-some thousand, 42, I believe, if you round it, that won't be traveling through that intersection, which means that they won't be in the mix or conflict with any north or southbound traffic headed to Rio, east or west.
How is that going to work? We just heard at the SMART meeting that 50,000 cars go through that intersection.
Yeah, round numbers.
And so we're saying that what currently travels on 4 lanes, we're gonna shove into that tunnel in 2?
In 4.
Only 2 each way.
2 each way.
Right now, they're 4
Yeah.
each way.
Yeah. 2 each way would handle that in a day.
4 lanes handles it today.
8 lanes.
8 lanes instead of 4.
Well, you're still going to have 4 lanes up on the local lanes, right?
Uh-huh. I'm just talking about what's
Yeah.
going through that tunnel.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's gonna be interesting.
yeah. That will,
But
that will,
the east-west movement is what I'm most interested in hearing, how that's going to be helped
the,
by the intersection that still has a light that has to wait for north-south traffic.
oh, well, sure, the north-south traffic that's still on the local lane,
And
Well-
you're accounting for some through traffic that decides to
Yeah.
go to the light.
Yeah.
In your
Yeah.
numbers. So
yeah, there'll be,
well, I guess that-
for example, somebody traveling north on 29 that wants to go to Albemarle Square will travel through the intersection, right? And we've got all those numbers now page numbered.
But so they're waiting at a
Uh-huh.
light while the east-west traffic
Yeah.
has agreed,
Mhm.
which is essentially what they have now.
Right?
Is that right? So
Right,
the
that's right.
east-west traffic is
That's
still
right.
stopping.
And there'll be 40,000 cars that won't be waiting to go through that light.
But the east-west traffic
Mhm.
is what I'm asking you about.
Right.
They're stopping at a light just like they're stopping at a light today.
But it's
Right.
40,000 fewer cars they have to wait.
Yeah.
But they're still going to be stacked up. I mean, there's still going to be 10 cars waiting to go through.
Well, you know, the way to alleviate that, I think, is a plan that may have floated some years back, which was really an interchange. And I don't think there's any desire to do that on anyone's side. I guess, Pete,
That's all I'm asking.
no, but that's the answer. The through cars that have no intention of using that intersection for anything other than to go by it will be removed from the mix of local traffic. And there'll still be a light to control the intersection. There will just be fewer, that light will be controlling fewer cars.
Okay.
Maintain left turn movements at Woodbrook post-construction, that's a yes. I mean, we plan to, that would still be a full movement intersection. Consider no right on red at Woodbrook and Fashion Square. I think in talking with VDOT, Brad, that's something that can be considered and looked at. I don't believe VDOT is ready to make that decision now, that it wouldn't be allowed.
I wasn't here when that was discussed. Which lane is that exactly?
That would be no right on red at the Woodbrook intersection to the north and the Fashion Square signalized
It
intersection
was
to the
mainly
south.
just Woodbrook.
Off of 29?
Just at Woodbrook?
Yeah, it was mainly Woodbrook. Fashion Square's main entrance has a fairly articulated merge lane
Mhm.
that's
Off of,
doesn't cause a
Off of
conflict.
or on?
on 229, on 229.
So if you're coming out of Lowe's and you're on Woodbrook and you're taking a right to go south, if we have people who are making U-turns if you're heading north on 29, you make a U-turn,
Right.
you'll make a right and you have a U-turn. So eliminating the right on red would help increase the safety. Most people should just pay attention to who's making a U-turn and not make a right. But it was a suggestion that someone made to me.
Is that
Yes.
Accident?
No, I mean, are we going to change, is that
I don't know,
going to be the
that's,
factor?
doesn't sound-
There are, currently, that's not the plan. It's not the plan to do that. But
The
that.
stacking is just a concern. I mean, I think that you're right, it's a safer way to approach that intersection, but the stacking will be significant back up into, potentially into the mall. But it would be.
So that was a recommendation, but it's not currently.
Okay, I was just curious.
Yeah.
So folks have asked me recently, going back to Woodbrook, of course, we've talked in the past, if you're coming up Rye Road, making the right, going north on 29, having to weave over 4 lanes to get into Woodbrook.
Yes.
Now there's the concept where folks are starting to ask, if you're going on the express lanes and you want to make a right to go into the Woodbrook subdivision and the Woodbrook school, there'll be 2 lanes of traffic coming through the local traffic, the frontage road, that will be accelerating to get onto 29. They're going to have to weave to the
Yes,
right.
they are.
So now you have some on the left that are going to the right, some that are on the right going to the left.
And we've got
I'd like to
those.
see a guarantee that that intersection does not get closed someday. And I know you can't do it, but there's a real concern that that intersection will be shut down someday because of the increase of accidents.
Yeah, well,
that occur there.
you're correct to say you can't guarantee it, but there certainly doesn't seem to be a reason to do that, looking out at 2040. And if you look, we showed those weaving movements on the traffic maps that you got, traffic graphics that you got last time. But there will be weaving. There'll be weaving for people getting into Albemarle Square, but that's not unusual, and our current analysis doesn't give any indication to think that it's an issue or a safety problem. But
Until it becomes one.
well, I mean, I hear you. I can only tell you where we are. If VDOT, I know if VDOT thought that was an issue, then it would be being talked about and addressed now. We did agree to, at one of your all's recommendations, increase the turning lane, the length of the turning lane, to provide more area for traffic to get to. That was an early recommendation.
I just asked that they study that a little bit
Yeah.
more.
Okay,
Please.
okay. Andrew, you got that? Okay. Safe bike and pedestrian crossings with all Route 29 Solutions projects. I know some of the folks that I've heard from don't believe there's enough bike in here. I guess all I can say is that the multi-use path, one of your all's recommendations, got added from Polo Grounds north to Hollymead, paved multi-use path. There'd be a pedestrian crossing and sidewalk there on the west side. The pedestrian crossings, and we had a discussion about this, which we'll come back to a little bit later on Rio, will be in 3 quadrants, 2 across Rio and the south crossing at just south of Rio across 29. I know there are bike lanes, I think, east and west on Rio. This project doesn't connect them. There's room there, certainly on the bridge or the crosswalk, to accommodate bikes, but they aren't connected as part of this project. And Berkmar includes bike lanes, a paved multi-use path, and a sidewalk. So I guess some are on both sides of this comment would say, well, we are maintaining safe bike and pedestrian crossings, but maybe not to the extent that some folks would like. I don't anticipate any changes for the bike lanes and pedestrian crossings. Connect the sidewalk at Town Center Drive to the sidewalk on the west side of Route 29 widening, which came up at our last meeting. Joel, I know you've talked to Mark, and why don't you tell the folks where you guys landed on this?
So, yeah, I looked into it, I looked at the as-built plans we had for Town Center Drive, and the right-of-way would not currently accommodate us putting a sidewalk in. There is a drainage easement there, and there's a landscaping easement, but we can't build a sidewalk in an easement. So Mark and I spoke, and basically I agreed that if the county could acquire that drainage easement as the right-of-way line, that we'd go ahead and put a sidewalk in that section connecting the two pedestrian facilities.
So if the county can acquire an easement, you committed to building a sidewalk?
Outside of we can't add this as a scope to the
Right.
widening, but
But you would do that through your
my office.
office and your budget?
Yeah.
And that would connect the sidewalks?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we're looking into it right now.
Okay.
So, where it's gonna go.
Okay, okay. Well, let's just keep bringing that back, see where that goes. All right, provide left turn access to Rio West at Merchants Tire and Hardee's. And John, I did go back, I said I've never gone back and looked at a video. I did go back and look at November 6th, because I wanted to be sure who kicked off this discussion, and it was you, when we were talking about how to get into, from the south, how to get from 29 South, how to get into Merchants. You started a discussion about, yeah, but what about getting out? I mean, if somebody wants to get out, there's a barrier there and they can't take a left. In the last 2 weeks, with a lot of help from Dave and Joel and Andrew and the engineering team, we are going to provide during the 103 days a median break that we've looked at in terms of its ability to handle what's W60, a big semi, multi-axle trailer. We are going to provide the ability for that left turn movement out of that particular entrance. And
Let's say this,
Yes.
very clear that some of you all oppose the projects, but a lot of people love that idea. And I mean, when you all come up with these ideas, it's pretty interesting, some of the reactions.
it was,
They're
you
glad
know,
that the input is still coming. And
it was a great idea that had just, I mean, I certainly, I had not thought of it, we never talked about it. There were several of you that got in that discussion last week, and I know I left scratching my head saying, well, why hadn't we thought of that? And
I
yes,
see the arrows where folks are exiting. Can folks enter as well?
well, they wouldn't be able to do.
Let's say you're coming on 29, you make a right on the Rio.
Well,
You go 100 feet.
okay, you're coming south on 29.
South on 29, make a right on the Rio West.
Right.
Go the 70 feet or 80 feet away. Make a left to go into Hardee's and Merchants. Can you-
No, they would do what they're doing today.
Okay.
They would do what they're doing today, which would probably be come through the intersection and turn into that entrance, or go to the end of that barrier and you have to flip around, which is what they do today. So that doesn't affect that movement. But I mean, yeah, no matter which side of the discussion you are about this particular project, that is a heck of I think, an uptick for maintenance of traffic in that 103-day period.
Well, thank you.
So, well, thank you guys for bringing it up and really pass along to Dave and Andrew and the folks that took a look at that. And I didn't show you all the diagrams of all the truck tracking to make sure that it could work and work safely with that southbound right movement coming in there. So thank you very much for pointing us in that direction.
Glad it worked.
I
Yeah.
should say someone asked me about ARB, and I mentioned you, Chuck.
Thank you very much.
So let me make
Yes,
sure we-
yes, sir.
Our little sidebar, no, not with the
Okay.
specifics, but just making sure, because this does get so confusing to all of us.
Yes.
The 103 days.
Yes, sir.
Only the east-west Rio will not be able to cross. North and south both continue with the 2 lanes.
Yes,
during the whole 103?
with no signal,
Oh, well, okay.
Right.
With no signal?
yes.
There's 3 lanes north of
3 north, 2 south.
And that, when do the signals on the north and south side get shut down? Do you have an idea?
I would guess that would be early, but I don't know. I really don't know.
I would think that they would, the signals north and south right at the same 103-day period.
At the same
And-
103-day
and
period.
I would say it might be plus or minus a day there.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be before because we're not going to allow it.
Right.
I would say
Right.
it's probably important to kind of.
Right, it's
get
not
that
before,
date
It is.
yeah.
down.
I would say it's possible the contractor, we wouldn't allow him to shut them down before, but depending on his plan how to execute the work, it could be after. Correct?
It could be after the intersections, yeah, it could be. I mean, we're going to see those schedules and those plans, but it could be, because right now the requirement is to maintain all of those existing connections and all the existing connections and movements 6 a.m. to 9 p.m.,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. But yet, that's not all that, I mean, also those left turns get closed during the 103-day period. So it's the cross traffic and the left turns from Rio to 29 and 29 to Rio. Okay. I sent you all a copy of a letter that was last week, I believe. VDOT has gotten approval of a plan to dispose of the Route 29 bypass right-of-way, the former bypass or whatever. They are going to begin releasing properties, focused on 9 properties that were in an attachment to that letter, that were purchased as advanced acquisitions. Those will be offered for sale back to the original owners. If the original owners don't wish to repurchase the property, then there's a sealed bid process to dispose of the property. Stephen, there's about 125 properties that were purchased. Those will be reviewed through a process that I'm sure Joel will be involved in the central office to see if there's any right-of-way that's needed for future transportation improvements. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there are a few parcels that you'll use for Brookmar, for example. Once they complete those reviews, those properties too will be offered back to the original owners. And if the owners aren't interested, those properties would be offered for sale at a sealed bid or sealed auction process. I don't have any more information on the schedule for the first 9. I know there's a lot of, I think, interest being expressed by some of those 9 to VDOT to repurchase the property that was previously purchased from them.
I just have a technical question.
Yes, sir.
Let's say I sold my house at $300,000 20-some years ago. Can I buy it back at the same price, or is it adjusted for inflation?
I don't want to misquote the law, so I'll tell you what I generally understand, and then Joel could jump in too. If the property is not viewed as developable for a higher and better use, it's offered back to you at the original purchase price. If it's a piece of property that, for whatever reason, is determined to be developable, it's offered at fair market value. That exhausts the extent of my knowledge about how that works, and I don't quite remember how it all works from my time at VDOT. But I think the law splits those two types. There are properties that are developable, which would mean based on current land use plans and zoning requirements, that could be offered at fair market value. Some would be offered at the original purchase price.
Has the county looked at possibly using any of that for connecting the dams?
You mean building the pipeline from South Fork up to Ragged Mountain? No, we have not, but we are talking to Tom Frederick over at Ravenna Water and Sewer. The thing is, they don't have a plan yet on what they're doing with that water pipeline.
All right. Okay. Item 17. The utility relocation, VDOT is actually, have been talking closely with utility owners for several months. It's utilities, relocations are one thing that really cause contractors a lot of concerns and they have a lot of questions about. And through the first round of proprietary meetings and proprietary correspondence with the offerers, VDOT is actually starting the preliminary utility relocation design, plans to bring it up to about 50% complete, and then hand it off to the a successful offerer. VDOT is also going to jumpstart the procurement of the utility relocation easements. And remember what we said at RIO, no more utility corridor. Utilities have to be relocated within the existing right-of-way or within the setback area. There is a preliminary utility field inspection scheduled for December the 4th, and VDOT's current plan is to kick off acquisition of utility easements in January. So that's a jump start. Yes, Henry?
I get a little bit confused. You say all the utilities will be within the right-of-way. There's that bullet that says will acquire utility relocation easements.
Right, within existing right-of-way or the county setback area. Within that 25 feet, 20 feet?
Depends on the zone.
Depends on the zone, okay.
So,
Yeah.
So it may be in property outside of the right-of-way.
It may be in an easement outside of the right-of-way, but within the county setback area, or they may need an easement, they may also need a construction easement for some of the utility relocations. Yeah. But those easements are takings, and takings have to be
Well,
compensated.
that's really what I was
Yes.
saying. So-
Takings have to be compensated, and if there are damages substantiated as part of a taking, those
And if
can be
they tunnel
compensated.
underneath it, then they may not be an issue, if they manage to tunnel underneath.
Underneath somebody else's property?
Well, under paved areas. I mean, it has been done before.
Yeah. Jim was going to give us an update on Hillsdale last week and then got called away. But next one, Stephen. Jim, I just jotted those down in the presentation on your, as part of your package at your desk. You've seen another update of, I'm going to borrow Chuck's just for a minute, of this integrated schedule, and now Hillsdale has been added on here as well. So Jim, appreciate you give us an update.
Not much to say. We're in right-of-way acquisition now. VDOT's been very helpful. They're taking over the post office acquisition for us. That was the one that we knew was going to be very, very difficult. So hopefully that'll go fairly quickly. I think we've got a very conservative schedule, but we can still meet the October 30th, 2017 date.
Yep.
I think we can, when we get ready to bid it, we put in some incentives in our own contract. We ought to be able to move it forward.
Okay.
Pretty good.
Oh, that's good.
While you're at the microphone, how about an update on McIntyre interchange? Anything new there that you can report?
We're still negotiating the actual completion, substantial completion date. It was third week in December. It's going to slip maybe 2 weeks. There was a snafu on some steel order, but they've gotten that corrected. So right now, it's somewhere around January 10th for substantial completion. And that means it will be, it and the Meadow Creek Parkway will be open to traffic on or about that, if everything goes well, on or about that date. But, you know, we're getting into a period of weather and everything else, but it looks good. I mean, they're ready to put the bridge deck on, getting real close to that, and doing some more paving, and things are getting really close.
That retaining wall next to the rescue squad really looks great.
Doesn't it, though?
Yeah.
They did a good job.
They did a nice job.
The project is coming along amazingly well. It's been some difficulty for some of the businesses, but I think we've got things open back up now, and I think we're in pretty good shape there. We still will have some work to do where Hillsdale comes down and tying the sidewalk in, not Hillsdale, Hillcrest comes down, you have too many hills, but where it comes in and a couple other little places, but it will be well out of the way before we get into any of this. And you had said adaptive signal, I don't know if it's.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, yes,
We,
yes.
The council approved that. We actually signed a contract with firm EPR to do the design of all the things that we have to do to get it ready. And as soon as, was getting in to get the fiber ready, get our boxes ready.
Yeah. Okay.
They hope to have that done shortly after the first of the year, and then we'll be ready to move on installation.
Do you and VDOT need to be plugged in together on that?
We're playing nice and talking.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's always good to hear.
VDOT folks have been very helpful.
Good. Okay, all right. Well, thanks, Jim. Appreciate that. Any other questions for Jim? Item 9, Mark, could you give us?
Just, real brief, because I think I covered most of it last
Yeah.
time. We've had our open house, we've had the stakeholders meeting, we've actually had staff out there at various businesses trying to solicit input from everybody. They've compiled the list, it's a fairly extensive list. It's planned to go to the board on December 3rd for discussion and review by the board. If the board sees there are things that they're very interested in versus things they're not interested in, try to give staff some idea. Once we've got that feedback, then we'll start working on the list.
Okay.
It's, like I said, it's very extensive. It's everything from what people have talked about as far as tax breaks to changes in signage regulation to just about everything. So.
Is there any way to make that list public prior to this?
It will be as soon as the board's agendas come out. It's actually a working paper right now, so until they finish up the agenda, it won't be. But it will be released as part of the agenda.
Okay. I really applaud you for going out the kind of personal visits with the different businesses. I mean, there again, no matter which side of this particular issue you're on, this is an opportunity to give some input to this assistance plan, and I hope people continue to take advantage of that. Any questions for Mark? Okay, item 10, Chip, can you update us on, I know you had your first meeting of your steering committee, I believe?
The Oversight Committee, and following up, I mean, what Mark discussed is part of the process, of course, coming out of that, and I think I've briefed a couple of weeks ago here, but we have all of our Oversight Committee, which is made up of city manager, county executive, Mr. Lynch from VDOT, and the MPO representatives meeting every month. And from that, subcommittees have been created for communications and engagement, for business assistance, as well as a neighborhoods assistance group. And each of the subcommittees are meeting now routinely every 2 weeks, reporting back monthly to the Oversight Committee of just updates as well as recommendations of things that they're proposing. But it's, if I could just, all of that in a nutshell, it's allowing the communications to take place constantly for the business assistance ideas, communications, working very closely with Lou on trying to get information out. Some of the results is we just completed a frequently asked questions kind of document so that we can start getting the basics and the facts of the project out.
Okay.
And also, it's the type of thing where with the city, the county, VDOT, the MPO all working together, we aren't waiting for meetings to occur in 2 weeks or oversight committee monthly. There's constant communications just to make sure that the county knows what the city's planning and all the way around the circle.
Did we share your
No,
plan with the?
We're ready to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I can email it out, or either if you'd like
Yeah.
to wait till the next meeting and include it in the packet.
Mail it out. Mail it out to the group.
Ready
Yeah.
to.
Okay. That'd be good. Any questions?
I
Go
think
ahead.
the only other thing is, because we talked about input here, while the subcommittees are strictly very small staff makeup so that they can constantly be talking, each one will be trying to create working groups that will include members of the panel, the business community, neighborhood association presidents, other people according to what the specific items may be. The neighborhoods committee, for instance, will have law enforcement included in the subcommittee, but will then get working groups from neighborhood associations so we can hear, is the concern cut through traffic, that type of thing. And the first neighborhood meeting that's going to be joint between the city and county is being looked at for early December in the Best Buy area, because you have both city and county residents there within that general area, and I know that they're working towards a common meeting already there.
Okay. Okay. Any questions for Chip? All right. Henry, last time you asked for a look at historical traffic on Route 29, looked at it in two pieces, hydraulic to Rio, Rio north to Hollymead, so realize this is a factored ADT over that entire area, and this is from VDOT's records, and there it is.
Well, in the early 80s, I must have been lied to because I was told 60, and it's 41.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I looked at the data sheets where this information came from, and
Just for
That's-
identification, I'd like to get a copy of that data sheet, if it's.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Online, VDOT's traffic engineering data online goes back to 97, I think, and then there was that sheet from your systems planning and statewide planning. Sure, yeah.
Well, if you email it to me, so, appreciate it. Well, I go back to the realtor and sold me the land, complaint.
I didn't do it.
So that's what.
It was Franklin.
So that was it. Okay. At the last meeting, we talked about this pedestrian crossing, and I was very honest with you guys in sharing my concerns about this crossing at the north, across 29 north of Rio. And I said I kind of got a little metric or inside monitor that if I can't rest well at night thinking about an issue, then it's hard to push aside. We have removed that crosswalk at the north, and we'll consolidate that crosswalk on the south of Rio across 29. The crosswalks will remain on Rio east and west. And why don't you pull up that rendering? Just last night, about 10 o'clock, we got an updated rendering. So the one that's in your package is the same one you saw last week. This is updated, and you'll see this crosswalk is gone. And we're going to take a little close-up view at some of this. There's some additional planters in there. There's a lot of things that can be done there to discourage crossing at the north. And as we talk, this is a pretty significant movement here, and it's just too much to pop in another crosswalk and feel good about it. So the crossing across 29 would be consolidated here. This is the high resolution of this rendering. which allows us to take a look at some things that, there again, no matter which side of this issue you might be on, do reflect some of the recommendations that you all made early on, that I just want to show you. Stephen, if we could, well, there's a close up. Maybe pull it down just a little bit. You recognize anybody here? But pull it down into maybe just pull the picture down a little. But that's an idea of what the architectural treatment would look like with that Virginia dry stack or whatever it's called, stone treatment with vertical separation. If you'll recall that early on we talked about this being a solid safety barrier, and you guys said, geez, that's not too cool. So we found a safety tested barrier that's approved for use by the American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials and the Federal Highway Administration, so it's more of a railing. It would be powder coated, so it's not shiny. That shows that. This shows how, I mean, it's impossible to say that that would be the final treatment, but that's yet another variation of how plantings could be handled on the bridge itself with individual planters that, remember at one time, there were some big trees growing out of the bridge. I can pretty well tell you that's not going to happen. And we had those moved out. You just come to the other side, which is basically, no, just keep going to the north there. Yeah, it's just another view of the architectural treatment of the walls. This area where the sidewalk won't be could be treated a couple of different ways. There's a couple of different light standards here. This more of a kind of a town feel, in my opinion, for a light. These a little bit more traditional. Might be some room for some changes there. Oh well, that's a barrier separating the northbound through lanes from the.
Can you do something more aesthetic than that?
That's a tough one, because that's a little bit of a tough one. That's a common treatment to keep traffic in their lanes, and these barriers are designed to divert traffic, if a car does hit it, to divert traffic back into its lane. I will say this, a lot of things have been tried with those. I haven't seen one that works. One reason is they get scraped, they get hit, but I don't know, Joel. I don't.
Yeah, the problem
That's
with
a
putting
tough
anything besides a concrete barrier is that you have a deflection on anything that's not a concrete barrier. And then so if someone hits it, you have opposing traffic that could still have a collision.
That's
with a piece of guardrail or this tri-rail here that would be deflected.
Well, that's a traditional Jersey barrier.
That's a traditional Jersey barrier.
And they've been proven for safety, okay? They haven't been proven for aesthetic. For safety, they're the standard.
But this was, I mean, Chuck, coming into it early, this was going to be up here. And that we got out of. This barrier treatment, while it's approved for this use, is not approved for that use, right? Joel?
We can look into it, but I'm pretty sure you're correct.
I'm pretty sure that's correct. But let's look into it.
Yeah, because it has to have that safety shape.
I think it has to have this safety, because those Jersey barriers kind of come down like a wedge, and it's that wedge that keeps traffic deflected into it.
But doesn't a good steel, heavy-duty steel guardrail do the same?
The problem with a steel guardrail is it has deflection.
Yeah.
The deflection of a steel guardrail is at least 2 feet behind it. So that's what, if someone hits the guardrail, it actually could cause the traffic in the opposite direction.
On the opposite
If you're
lane.
close, to actually have a problem. You can't have a deflection on a wall down in that area.
And it looks like it's only showing one.
You just can't, you just not seeing the other one in that view. This is what Karen's asking for is, well, okay, this is
Right, it's like
fine.
Morgan's drawings that he showed us, you
yeah.
know, that
Yeah,
viewpoint coming
right,
through, we can't see.
right,
I mean, it can
right.
be, like I've got the pictures, just a
Yeah.
concrete, you know, what is it gonna look like? One,
Yeah.
what are the drivers going to see? Because once
Mhm.
they go in there, they're not gonna see those beautiful plantings or any of that, or anything that's around them.
Well,
Other than the
Well,
walls
in
with
fairness,
the stone on it.
these won't,
Right,
these
and
will,
80% of the traffic now is going to be going through those lanes, correct? So they
Pardon
have-
me?
From what we heard before, 80% of the traffic will be going through those lanes, so they won't be seeing all that's above. That's
They
what they
won't
said the
be
last
seeing
meeting I
it,
was,
right.
I was at.
Right.
The statement was made that 80% of the current traffic on 29 will be going through the through lane.
I
So
think it's 80%. That was talked about in the entire length of 29. Henry knows these numbers. 50,
it's
50.
the
about
opposite
50.
of the numbers I showed you.
Yeah.
It's
It's a little more than 50. It's a little more than 50.
50 to
I-
65.
yes, a goodly amount.
But yeah, absolutely, yeah, I'm not,
Right,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, actually, it's the same number. It's the 53% reduction is the percentage.
Right,
It's-
right,
yeah.
right. Won't you
I'd like
go
to make
back
a
in a
comment
little bit?
about
Yes, yes, sir.
the further design of that. And I know that's just a placeholder right now. But
Yes.
You want to give that an integrated design, because right now it looks like it was a sidewalk and then something was improvised to stop it. And what happens, it still looks like a sidewalk, so people will want to walk on it or try to walk in it and use it as a
This
regular.
person down there on the sidewalk.
And
They're walking down here.
if you want to prevent it, you probably want to have some sort of a raised.
We are going to look at that, but they're going to look at it, but in a way that remains tasteful and,
Well, that's why I'm
Yeah.
suggesting that from a safety point of
Yeah.
view and tasteful, you probably can do something that is slightly raised, like a couple feet or so,
Mhm.
and it may have an
Why
edge
don't you
like
just
like a
pull it
sidewalk,
back
but
in
only
a
like a
little
foot or a foot and a half wide and so on.
yeah.
So that's, I'm sure you have people that talk.
Cactus plants, that's
It's not,
good. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Morgan
yeah.
has some people that do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I will put this up on the website, and I'm sure we'll get the folks to do a low-res version as well, like we've done in the past. I think this one checks out at a 90, 94, 95 megs or something like that.
So on DSL, that takes half an hour to download.
But
Would it be possible to get a look at this? You know, we get all these type books, which are easy, and I understand
Yeah.
that. I understand why we're not doing it, but I think at some stage, we got to
No.
talk about the whole thing.
No, we are doing that.
Okay.
We are doing that. It just needs some more work. It needs some more work. This is actually a zoomed in snapshot out of a bigger rendering.
Okay, I'd love to see
Okay.
like the weaving movements and things like that we're all kind of talking about every meeting could be seen.
What we're working on is taking, Joel mentions the VISM model.
What model?
Take the VISM, which I've long forgotten what that stands for, but the traffic model, which has a visual piece to it that looks pretty crummy, but we're taking that traffic engineering model and the modeled traffic that you've seen and pushing it into a movie based on this rendering. So you'll see the movements as they might happen based on the traffic that we have. You saw some of that at an early version at the public hearing in October.
Yeah, well, it may be good that we have an overall view that includes the traffic lights on both ends, on 29th Place and on Woodbrook, because people have a hard time understanding where the weave even starts.
Yeah, sure.
And
Sure.
people don't realize it, and I pointed out that essentially the weave can only start in front of the Crutchfield store, if I understand the drawings correctly. The way the lines come together.
Well, these are delineators here.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah, and I think that
Going
if you go
up to
further
Woodward.
north,
Yeah, well, these delineators stopping here, right?
No.
What he's talking about is where
The merge.
the lower.
Oh, yeah,
meet
yeah.
the higher.
Yeah, I'm sorry, yes,
And
yes.
I had to explain it to somebody that based on what I can see on the drawings, looking with almost a magnifying glass, the delineators don't come together until you're kind of in front of the.
Yeah, no, we'll be able to see that.
So that is when.
And we'll probably have that on the 4th.
It wouldn't have to have this level of detail.
Yeah, no,
The engineering stuff would
Yeah.
be, we keep seeing publicly these architecturally tight,
Uh-huh.
and I think we've made great progress on all
Yeah.
the things you've.
No, I understand.
Thank you.
Okay.
Crosswalk.
13, wrap up. Go ahead, that's the one. That gets us to the end. Wrap up. Pete, you want to?
No, I don't have it.
Okay. Chip. Morgan? Mark?
I'll just reiterate my concern about what people are telling me about the weaving left and right, right to left. It's something I really think needs to be studied a little bit more.
Okay. We'll bring in some more details on the weaving analysis. Chuck? Okay. John?
Have you ever heard of the word vacuous?
Vacuous. Going to make me look bad here. I can't say that it's zipping up into my vacuous.
Somebody I worked with
Vacuous.
called this interchange vacuous, and I had never heard what that word was.
I'm presuming it's not a compliment.
Google
No,
it.
I haven't heard it.
I never knew the word existed.
Vacuous.
So tell us what it means.
You're better looking.
You want me to look it up? Okay, all right, we'll look that.
I'll try my luck at it.
We'll look that up. Everybody's going to their phones now.
Something that is not very clear, that there's a lot of voids, vacuum in it, spaces. Yeah.
It's what our faces look like when it gets to be about 4 o'clock in these meetings.
Very true. I was hoping all these people that major in humanities would know.
I know, I'm really disappointed.
You really don't want to know the definition.
I'm disappointed.
It's here.
Yeah.
Do you really want to know?
Yeah.
Silly, insane, unintelligent, insipid, foolish. That's enough of that.
All right, well,
I was going for a highbrow.
every day, yeah, Henry was.
I'm just saying what Google said.
Brad, Jim, Karen?
Well, I think I talked enough.
Oh, but thank you very much.
I did have, that wasn't my spot. I was sorry, no, Karen.
No.
Just, again, overall, that what I'm hearing is, that the parallel roads, the Hillsdale, all of these are good to the solution. The interchange, that there's great concern for not just during construction, but afterwards, the long-term ripple effects through the entire community that this whole interchange is going to have. That you cannot separate business from community concerns. It's all connected. Talk about business assistance, it's community assistance. Our neighbors are the people we do business with, that do business with us, and what this is going to do to our community.
Henry?
Already.
Okay. I wanted to let you all know that I am attending a meeting later tonight of the Jefferson Area Tea Party, and that Laura Knox and I have found the date of December 4th for me to meet with the Smart 29 group, and I look forward to that. We might do that in this room at noon on the 29th, and on December the 4th in the morning, I'm going to meet, and I might get this wrong, it's a group of the chamber, former past chair, it's not the chamber board, but it's a
It's like an executive
annual or
committee.
of past chairs of the chamber. So we'll have a busy day, and it's difficult to think that the next time we meet will be December the 4th. For the folks that weren't here last time, did I think I sent you the presentation or a link to, because it has the calendar. Okay,
I
okay.
have the new calendar is out.
It has the calendar for the next 6 months, January 8th, every other week.
And did we reappoint ourselves for that period of time?
Yes, yes, you are in it to the end. I hope you are in it to the end. There again, no matter what view you have
Doubled your compensation.
of the projects,
From 0 to double 0?
there are real benefits coming out of here, and I think we showed it, frankly, again today from that conversation you kicked off, John, that several people joined in on. Looked at something we just hadn't thought about. December 4th, 2 o'clock. Lou, I'm sorry.
I did get an answer about YouTube videos.
Oh, yes.
We do not allow commenting on our YouTube videos, but we're going to figure out a way to redirect people to Route 29 Solutions
Okay.
site to make comments on those.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing that up.
I'm impressed with the time.
There you go. Thank you very much.
National meeting.
Thank you. Thanks, Lou.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Look, happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Remind me. Happy Thanksgiving.
The email newsletter?
Yeah, an email newsletter went out today to a mailing list comprised from the county, people that showed up at the design public hearing and the county's business assistant program, but it's just an email
Communicated with
blast.
us through Route 29 Solutions.
Did we send it to all of them?
We did.
Okay, good, okay. Thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving.
All right, happy Thanksgiving.
See you.
Thank you very much.
In any studies.
Sorry about that.
Keep saying right on 30 to 32 months.
Thank you. That's it.